quick recap. Hopefully, you guys have those long-term goals identified, because when you do your informational interview with someone in your industry, and make sure you read up on what informational interviewing is all about in chapter 2, remember it's just a, picking someone's brain, very informal conversation, and starting with your long-term goals and telling them what it is you're trying to do, and see if you can get some feedback from them. All right. With the discussion post, you guys are doing a really good job. Just remember that when you do respond to someone, you can't say I agree and that's it. You need to have at least 50 words in your response. Please try not to copy and paste, or do not copy and paste your initial answer directly from a book or website. It needs to be, you need to paraphrase it into your own words. Many people could be reading the book, right? So everybody just copying and pasting from the book, that doesn't make any sense. That's not a discussion. But you can obviously quote from the book. So you can say, according to the author, these are the blah, blah, blah. But try to make sure you also add in your own wording. All right. Um, Someone asked this question, so I just put this out there, but I just wanted to make sure that we all knew that both your resume and your mock interview, those are not with your old instructors or professors. That is with career services. I had someone ask me if their professor, their old instructor, could do that for them. The answer is no. But your previous instructor could do an informational interview with you. So just make sure that you don't understand the difference between the mock interview, which you're not going to be doing until week 3, and then the informational interview, which is just an informal conversation. That, yes, your previous instructor can do. We actually encourage you to reach out to them regarding that. They know all of you guys are in this class, and they, have done it numerous times for other students. So that you can do. So just wanted to clarify that. All right. So many of you, have a resume and may have written a resume. Give me a thumbs up if you've actually written your own resume before. Oh, okay, good. Quite a few people. Okay. Oh, wow. Wow. Almost everyone. All right, so we're gonna breeze right through this then. Good. So if you've written your own resume, I'm preaching to the choir then. You know, it is a written document that identifies your qualifications, education, and experience, right? You may or may not know there's a lot of different ways you can write a resume. The most obvious one that we're mostly used to is the chronological resume, and we'll dig into what that is. What you may or may not know is it is very, very important that when you are writing your resume and you are trying to align yourself with what a potential job opportunity desires, that the keywords that you find in a job posting should also be in your resume. How many people knew that? Give me a quick thumbs up if you were aware of that. Or okay, okay, I see a few. Very good. Good, good, good. Um, and then we're going to talk about why that is. But obviously, if the company is saying that they need you to do certain things, that those are the things that they're going to be looking for when they review resumes. They're going to be looking for what we call keywords, trigger words, however you want to frame it. Those are the things that they're going to be looking for. And so if you look at a job description, here's a sample job description for a welder, and the book has highlighted some of the trigger words or keywords, right? And you see here it says your ability to do what? Read and interpret blueprints and schematics. Your ability to maintain equipment, including selecting and installing torches. Your ability to select the appropriate welding process, and operating the manual and semi-automatic equipment, very important. inspecting completed wells, insurance safety is a huge one, right? All these different things that if you're in the welding department sounds familiar, hopefully. So what is going to happen when a company is searching for a person to fill a position? They're going to be looking for these words, right? They wouldn't put it out in the advertisement if these weren't the the things that they felt were critical to that role. So the question is, how does that affect you? Well, what ends up happening is, especially because of technology, many companies, when they post on to LinkedIn or Indeed.com or Job Hire, or any of those platforms, they're going to get hundreds of resumes, hundreds. And oftentimes, they may not have a robust HR department. So many companies use automated tracking systems, and they pretty much funnel your resume through those tracking systems to pick up on the keywords that they have identified. Now, the problem is you don't necessarily know which words are the keywords, but rest assured, anything that's an action or a noun in the job description is probably a keyword, or they wouldn't put it in there, right? So you want to make sure that your resume, you know, has as many keywords as possible, provided you have experience with those things, right? Many of us have a lot of experience. You can't, I mean, in my 32 years of being employed, or it's probably longer than that, I can't put 30 years of work on one resume. That wouldn't make sense, right? So I am going to be selective on what I put on a resume. Typically, it's probably going to be things that are relevant to the position that I am applying for. So if I read the job description and I know I have experience, then I need to make sure that my resume is in alignment with that job posting, right? Because I'm up against a lot of people. I tell people all the time, you're not just up against, people in your local area. Thanks to, again, to technology, you may have someone in a different town, in a different state, applying for that job because they're willing to move or they're willing to travel. Like, you never ever know, if you're thinking, oh, I live in a smaller town, or, you know, um, I live, I know this company is right down the street from me. And so you're thinking I am a definite shoe-in because I live right down the street. Why would they not hire me? And you not knowing that they may have gotten 200 resumes for that position. Maybe the person doesn't live down the street, but maybe someone else, they wrote their resume better, or maybe they may have more experience than you. And that is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get a job in today's society, because of the competition and because companies have to filter through so many opportunities, especially if they put the opportunity on a social media platform. So if you're one of those people where you've been having a difficult time getting a job, and it used to be 90 days to get a job, now it's like 4 to 6 months, 6 to 8 months, depending on the type of work you're in. And even in rare cases, it could be upwards of a year or more. Anybody know anyone that had to look for a job over a year? It took them a year to be employed. Hopefully it's not you. It's very, very common. Yeah, I see a few, right? It's common. It's unfortunate too, which is one of the reasons why, when I teach finance, I teach make sure you have an emergency fund, because the struggle is real. I tell people that when I apply for jobs, and I know I work in a unique industry because I'm a contractor and I'm a consultant, and I do have the ability to work from home. So it does give me a little bit more leverage to apply for work in a remote capacity, right? Anywhere in the nation or even in the globe. Like, I don't care. I've even worked for foreign companies. Don't tell Trump on me, but nothing illegal. Get your minds out of the gutter. But they were in Canada, so y'all know that's drama now, right? But but I had that ability to do that. But even with that ability, I'm not the only person. I'm not special. I'm not unique. So I'm up against a lot of people. So I've had to put out, it wouldn't be uncommon for me to have to put out 200 resumes in like a 3 or 4 month span. Sometimes that's what it takes. Now, I'm also going to be transparent. I mean, I do get hits because, I can be flexible in the type of work that I do, but realistically, that's how many resumes I had to put out, so putting out a lot of resumes, somebody may think, oh, I put out 10 resumes. Uh, that's one resume. You're gonna have to put out a lot of resumes. Now, obviously, you may not have 200 companies that you want to work for, but the more you are able to be a little bit flexible, if you have that capacity, the better, because you may have to put out a lot of resumes. That's just, what it is, right? Now, when you do your resume, there is a template that, again, most people use. We call it a chronological resume. That was the standard traditional resume. There are others that focus more so on your skills or things like that, and you'll see them a lot maybe in the medical industry or the technology industry, but most other industries use the chronological resume. You are going to go with whatever your career services person tells you. Remember, this does not have to be your only resume, and I'll talk about why in a minute. But the way I may write a resume and the way that the career services person that's supporting you may write it may be a little different. There's no right or wrong. So everything that I tell you is coming directly from the book or my personal experience. I used to be a federal resume writer. I used to write for military people coming out, trying to get civilian jobs or trying to get government jobs. So I had to do a lot of that conversion. Any veterans? I don't know if this class here. I think I have a couple of veterans here, so they may be familiar with that process you have to go through. You're okay. I see. Brett, did you go through that process of them helping you write a civilian resume when you got out of the military? I'm not sure if you're still in or not, but that's like a whole thing, or the process of.
I borrowed like a template of somebody who wrote a pretty good one and then kind
Mhm.
of edited it from there, and that's kind of how I really got my feet wet with just looked at a bunch of other people's and then
Mhm.
borrowed what I like from all of them. So yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what. I feel so sorry for the government workers. Do you guys know how hard it is to get a government job? Anybody ever tried? It is extremely difficult, and I don't care who you are unless you just know someone that knows someone that knows someone. And the process is extreme. It's long, it's arduous. The resume process is totally different. How you write your skills is totally different from a civilian job. My heart completely sank and broke for those people that lost their job and probably are never going to come back to the government realm because it is very difficult to get in. Like a lot of people don't understand that. I was even up for, I mean, I was a government contractor, but I was even up for, but I was working through a third party, and I had applied to work at a government, the federal government, and of course, we all got frozen out. But it's very, very difficult. And my resume had just come up for a review, and that was 4 months. 4 months just to come up for a review. Can you imagine? The process takes like up to a year in a lot of cases. So, obviously how you write that resume is critically important. And how you write a resume, a government resume is super, super is very there's a lot of nuances to it, right? So you really got to know what you're doing. But with civilian resumes, they come pretty standard, what you see here on the screen, and this order all the different sections, right? for one, the heading, of course, obviously, the heading you're going to need because people need to know how to get a hold of you. But outside of your name and your phone number, really, I'm going to say outside of your name and your email address and your geographic location, not even your address, your geographic location. Central Florida, you could say Orlando, Florida, Tampa, Florida. Like say have your name, your email address, Tampa, Florida. You can put your phone number on it. Don't ever put your address on it. Don't ever put your address on your resume, especially if you are going to be posting your resume on Indeed.com or anything like that. Like you don't want people having access to to your email address. I mean, to your address. It's not like back in the day when we did that. We didn't have online platforms, right? So when we gave our resume to a company, it was only to that company and it was okay for them to have your address. But nowadays, no, no, no bueno. Don't do that, right? So don't put your address on your resume. And I would even say, putting your phone number, if you're going to post it on like Indeed and make it public, I don't know if I would even put my phone number on it. Maybe, just use your email address. Your social media platform, though, account is good because most people will contact you there anyway. But, unfortunately, y'all know how it is. More technology, more problems, right? They say more money, more problems, more technology, more access to people, more problems. There are always nefarious characters. They're always doing and things they're not supposed to do. But at any rate, this is typically what you have in your heading. Now, this section here is going to come in a lot of different ways. Some people call it a summary. Some people use a qualifications. Some people use a profile. They all pretty much say the same thing. It is a brief synopsis of your your experience and your qualifications. Here is one of the first places you put those keywords that you see in a job description. You want to sum up what the person that is reviewing your resume is going to see in that resume. So you want to have some keywords from the different positions that you have. You're also going to use this summary, qualifications, profile, whatever you want to call it, to update your LinkedIn account. Now, I have heard some people say calling it a summary or calling it a profile is so passe, and you're supposed to call it this now. Like, whatever you call it, it's all the same thing, right? Um, but you're also going to get this thing called a personal brand statement that you will extract from that. And we're going to be talking about that next week when we talk about networking. But for now, just understand how important this summary is. So when you get your resumes back, hopefully it has a summary on it, and I only say that because again, every career, all you guys are dealing with different career services people. So I don't know what they're going to put at the top of your resume. There's no right or wrong, but hopefully they all do at least a summary, qualifications, or a profile because you're going to use it in your other assignment, or else you're going to have to make one on your own. But anyway, so we'll talk more about that. The skills is another option, I'm going to say, because some people, if you're in a technical field like yourself or IT, then you may want to have your skills, but where do you put it? The rule of thumb from my experience is if you don't have a ton of experience, like work experience, then it's good to put the skills right at the top. But if you have a ton of work experience and it's going to go through a lot of your skills and you just have some extra skills you want them to talk about, then it's okay to put them at the bottom. But please note this is another place, this is another area in your resume where you can still throw in some of those technical, words, right? Those hard and soft words. This is another area where you have an ability to throw those words in. It's especially if maybe you don't have the experience, because let's say you just graduated, but you do have the skill set, right? So this is a great place to throw in what you can do, whether you've learned it from school or you've actually done it in a work environment. Education, again, is another place. If you have a lot of experience, they say you can put your education after your experience. If you don't have tons of experience, put your education right at the top. We always tell people when they first graduate, put the education right at the top, because technically you may not have the skills, you may not have the experience, but you do have the skill set to do it via your education. Well, how do you write your education? Always you're going to include the school and the city and state that the school is, because believe it or not, there's many schools with the same name. So you want to make sure they got the right STC, you know, college, so you got to make sure you put it that it's in Florida. And then they also typically want to see what year you graduated, right? You don't have to put anything else about your education. Most people understand if you say, I got a degree in this, they know what that is, or they can Google it if they need to. Now, this is where this is the meat, obviously, of your resume. Everybody writes resumes different. I keep saying that, but I personally feel that a winning strategy for writing your experience is to always, always include what I like to call PAR statements. Anybody ever heard of that word, PAR statements, before? These are summary bullets of problems, actions, and results that you have done or accomplished in your job. Never, ever, ever just write experience in bullet point form. I see that. I know there's probably going to be some career services person that's going to do it. I'm not judging, but think about it. Your resume is not a McDonald's menu. You don't say, I a bullet points of I did this, and that. Why is that? Because you're not telling anybody how well you've done the job. You're just listing out different portions of the job, right? That's not really saying anything. What you want to do ideally is have a brief summary of your job, right? Served as a educator for Southern Technical College, providing career preparation tools and processes for trade industry students, as they enter the workforce, like some type of brief little summary. And then I would have at least 3 bullet points on how well I did the job. So an APAR statement is problem, action, and result. Now it's called problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're solving a problem, but it means that you got some type of result. Now it could have been an implied problem. So I'll give you an example. As an instructor, I may put 95% pass rate of all students year over year. So what's the problem in that? The problem is they didn't. It would have been a problem if they failed, right? So that means that I had 5% fail, but I had 95% that passed. What am I already doing now? Now you're saying, oh, this is the type of instructor she is. She just doesn't provide this service. She's actually giving us some data on how well she's done the work, right? um, 0 percent absenteeism in a 90-day span for both online and on ground courses. Y'all see what I'm doing? So if someone's reading my resume, they're like saying, oh, she's a pretty decent instructor, right? Now she teaches this, but she's also given us some data to be able to determine how well she's doing the job. Do you see the difference in just writing a bullet point and actually saying how well you've done something? Does that make sense? Quick thumbs up to let me know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I understand that. Any questions on that? That's a really big part of writing your resume. Now, the book is going to go into more detail, and obviously you'll be working with career services on that. But I'm telling you guys, it makes you stand out. I used to train HR, help people get their HR certifications. And as someone that has gone through tons and tons of resumes, not just, helping HR, but also just hiring people in my corporate career, I'm always looking to see how well you've done a job. Like if you just give me a little laundry list of stuff, I don't even really take that resume serious, to be honest with you, because you're not really telling me much. You're telling me that you worked at a company, but I don't know how well you've done something. So that's my 2 cents on that. But again, how the format that you put a resume in and what I've just described, typically you're always going to start with your most recent job all the way back to your earliest position. We call that a chronological resume. But some other types of resumes can be a skills resume, a combination resume, where you have both it's chronological, but you're also just pulling out skill sets. Like a skill resume would look something like, maybe you wanted to say that and a lot of technology people do it, like we may say, oh, I know how to do database management, and I talk about what that is, and then I list the companies I've done that for. So opposed to writing the company and what I did at that company, and then say I did database management, then go to the next company, I did database management, then go to the next company, I did database management. The topic would be database management, and then I would list the companies I've done it for. That's more of a skills-based resume. You don't see a lot of that, but some technical industries do it that way. All right. Companies may also want you to do your resume, send it to them in PDF format. A lot of times it's because they're going to put it through that ATS system, and they want to make sure it's in PDF. And additionally, they want to make sure that the HR department doesn't make a mistake and manipulate your resume. So that's why they'll ask for it in PDF format for the most part. I have seen some HR people get a little persnickety if you don't do it. Like I've seen them, send it to me in PDF format or we won't read it. Follow these instructions. I'm like, oh, okay. These people probably get a lot of resumes and they want to make sure they're in a specific format so that they can run it through the system. So just make sure you're paying attention to that, because you don't want little stuff like that to get your resume kicked back because you didn't do it. And we've kind of talked about other resume formats. People are even considering LinkedIn a form of I don't know, electronic resume, if you will. But is more so of a portfolio, if you ask me. Now, because you do write a lot of resumes, and if you weren't aware of that, let me tell you now, you're going to have more than one resume. Give me a thumbs up if you have more than one resume. Who has more than one resume? Let me tell you why that is. The book is going to tell you you need to, as many jobs as you apply for, is that's how many resume each time you have to adjust your resume. Let's say, for example, if I'm the VA field, right? I'm a veterinary assistant. If I apply for a job at a pet hospital, they may be looking for something totally different from a VA than if I apply for a job at an animal shelter. Or let's say I apply for a job at a clinic. Those are three very different types of jobs. They all deal with animals. I'm probably going to have some similarity in the work that I'm doing, but there are going to be some differences. Now, you would say, well, why not just put it all on your resume, what you do? Well, you're clearly going to do that because you're doing it now, but it's not until you read the job description do you realize, oh, shoot, they also want me to have some front desk work, right? You're not thinking about front desk work, when you're doing your VA resume, but you're looking because you're going to be working at this clinic and they want you to have some type of administrative experience. You may have to go back and add that to your resume because maybe you just didn't talk too much about it. Maybe you did work at a pet, clinic, but you didn't mention the admin stuff you did there, right, in your initial resume. But then you go and this person wants you to do it, so you're like, okay, let me go add that back. Or maybe you apply to a shelter and they do rescues, and you didn't put rescue. Maybe you used to rescue, volunteer your time to rescue animals, not officially, but you did it. But this animal shelter say, hey, sometimes we get calls and we have to go rescue pets. well, you're like, oh shoot, well, let me go add that to my resume because I have done it, but it's not something that I put in my initial resume. So you have to change your resume and adjust it with each job so you make sure you're hitting those keywords. And that's really why we say that you need these multiple resumes. So you will be writing them a lot. One of the reasons why you want to make sure that you proofread is because you will be doing that a lot, especially for those of us that you're actively looking for work, and you may have 10 companies that you put out to a clinic, 10 companies that you put your resume out to a animal shelter, another 10 that you did to a hospital because you're trying to get a job, right? And that's what you're going to be doing in the beginning. So that's why you got to make sure you proofread. I have sent the wrong resume to the wrong people. I have had the wrong cover letter. I've done it all. Obviously, if I put out 200 resumes before, you are going to make those mistakes, but try not to make those mistakes. And typically, I always catch it when I go and say, oh, let me check in on, you know, this company, especially if I did it through like an Indeed, and then I look at my resume and I realize I put the wrong name on it or I made this type of mistake. Well, clearly they're not going to call me unless the HR somehow missed that. But, so that's why it's so important to proofread and spell check because, if you're changing your resume a lot, you're going to have those mistakes, right? So does everyone understand that? I know I kind of ran through it, but I want to make sure that you understand the gist of the resume. Any questions on that? All right. Professional references, obviously most of us know that you should have professional references available upon request, separate page, 3 at the most. Even though the book gives an example of putting all these people's information on your reference, I do not put their address and all that on the reference. I typically put their name, their title, the company they work for, and their email address. If you need more than that, you need to let me know. Most companies are using these electronic, references anyway. Some companies do call and they'll let you know if they want a phone number, but I don't like to put people's personal information on things unless, I'm required to and I've gotten their permission. Let someone know if you are looking for a job and you put them down as a reference, please. Don't have the people get surprised. What I always do with my references is I will send them the job description I've applied for, especially if I've gotten a interview and the person says, okay, we're going to move you to the next level, or we want to reach out to your references. I always make sure as a courtesy, I'm like, hey, Patrick, here's the job I've applied for. Here's the position. Here's what I really want you to focus on when you talk to them. I never tell my references what to say because I have decent references until I don't have to fake it. I learned very recently that people have fake references. As old as I am, I did not know that was a thing. I'm like, how do you do that? I'm not, I was embarrassed to realize people even did that. It's not something I ever even thought about. I'm like, well, if you have real references, you don't have to think about that type stuff, right? It never occurred to me that people did that, but that's a thing apparently. But I've had references, my same references, and I've been a reference for people for many, many, many years. If you do a good job, you don't have to worry about having fake references. You can have some really good references. And I have, you know, I still refer people that I work for or that have worked for me 10, 15 years ago. I'll do a reference for them. I love the work that they do. I'll sing their praises. And anybody that calls me up, I'll tell them exactly that. Patrick's great, so and so is great. But they do send me the job that they've applied for. So at least I'll know what to talk about. All right. If you don't have any questions on that, let me tell you what I want you to do. Don't jump off, guys, because I do want to talk about your assignment before you do it for tonight. But your participation question is, I want you to list 3 different things you've learned about resumes today. Now, I know all of y'all are superstars and you probably didn't have much, but just indulge me. Try to come up with something, even if you say, well, I knew about these 3 things, but I learned X, Y, Z, whatever. Maybe you learned about par statements today. You can put that down. So I apologize in advance for you seasoned resume writers, but if you could try to come up with 3, that'd be great. You can also look in the book too. You don't have to just go by what I've written, what I've said today in the live session. All right. And for your assignment, so what you're going to do, we want you to practice, with this researching companies. So we're going to ask you to research some companies in your assignment, and you are going to find at least 3 different companies that have similar skill sets that they want, both on the hard skills. Now, be mindful that the book calls hard skills job specific skills. That's important for your midterm. Job specific skills is synonymous with hard skills, it's synonymous with technical skills. Employability skills are synonymous with soft skills. So make sure that they're interchangeable. So make sure that you know that. Um, and what we want you to do is try to find 3 different job postings, and you're going to list the web addresses or the URL links, either one of these 3 job postings, and then tell me 3 things that they have in common on the technical side and 3 things they have in common on the soft skill side. So if you, for example, look for, welding, and maybe you want to go into home construction. So you look for 3 different companies that do that. Or you look through a few companies and you find 3 that they're kind of wanting the same thing, and you see each of them want you to have, experience with blueprints. Okay, so that's one thing. They each of them wanted you to have, the ability to work with a certain type of equipment. That's something else. And then, whatever the third thing is. And then on the soft skill side, each of them say that they want you to have some experience working with project management, some experience working on a team, a cross-functional team, which means obviously you may have the painter, the electrical, the HVAC person all working together. Y'all know how that goes. So, or they may say they want, to have customer service. So all 3 are saying that. So try to find 3 things that they all are saying, and let that be your 3 soft and 3 hard. Does that make sense? And don't post the job descriptions, my friends, please, because I'm not reading them for you. So make sure you read them and then highlight what you found. All right. Well, that's it. Please remember, you do not have class tomorrow. I know it's going to be tough, but I'll be back on Monday. It's going to be tough being without me. Yeah, right. So no class on Monday. I mean, on Friday. You have until Sunday to get all of your assignments in. Please try to get all of your assignments in. And please do this participation question so I do not have to mark anybody absent tonight. Y'all kill me with that, especially when you show up for almost an hour and listen to me ramble and then you don't do the assignment. I do not understand it. Oh, it's only 1 or 2, but please get it done so we can have perfect attendance. I love to brag about that. Thank you so much for coming here tonight with us. We appreciate it. We appreciate your participation. I will see you guys back here on Monday. Have a good night. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.